At first glance, the man before you may almost be sleeping, judging by the peaceful look on his face. I say almost, until you look around the room, notice the tension in the air. The man seated before him, with an intense look of displeasure upon his face. The man standing behind him, gripping a sword. And the man himself, with a knife, much like this, in his hand. The illusion ends here, you see, as he drives the knife deep into his left side of his stomach, bringing it all the way over to the right, turning the knife and bringing it up to the center of his stomach, without so much as a grimace or making a noise. Once this is done, the man standing behind him, actually his friend, beheads him. The man you see was a samurai, and he followed a code. And that code helped shape Japan into what it is today. In his book, Bushido, Soul of the Samurai, Inazo Nitobe explains that Bushido, actually meaning way of the warrior, was a code of ethics, an unwritten code that the warrior class followed and became one of the most fearsome classes in the world. It is much in the way that chivalry was to European knights. Now, the code of Bushido followed some very specific precepts, such as honor, where the man's word was his bond, and politeness and self-control, where no emotion or passion would stir the calm surface of the warrior spirit, in discipline. The warriors were very disciplined people, committed to a course of action. Once it was time to strike, they struck without passion, but would also, if it was right time for them to do so, would die for a course of action as well. Honor and loyalty were the biggest system for the samurai, that were actually symbolized by the swords that they carried. As a warrior class, they were the only ones allowed to carry the swords. They focused on many martial arts, hand-to-hand, bow and arrows, and of course the most popular swords that you see in samurai in movies today. What may not be known about them is that they also were artists. They focused on the Japanese tea ceremony, which the bowl was turned in a specific way. Everything was laid out in very specific steps that look very graceful, and that is due to the self-control and the discipline that is applied to them. Samurai were also big on flower arranging, which was, there would be very specific flowers that would be laid out in, again, very, very specific steps to look beautiful and graceful, but in a random way. In modern days, Bushido can actually be seen in the Japanese people as it spread through the social classes and became an adopted moral standard by the people once the samurai were disbanded and no longer needed as warriors. Japanese people today are very self-controlled, controlling their emotions almost to the point of seeming aloof, and they are a very polite people, showing honor to guests to the point where they would disparage a gift without meaning to seem rude, but it is more about the spirit of the giving as opposed to the material of the gift itself. Also, Bushido can be seen in World War II era with the kamikaze. Now, they believed, obviously, with the course of action, that they had a concept that was more important to them than life itself, and would do the suicide bombings as their way of showing that death before dishonor was more important to them. If a course of action was more important than life itself, they would be willing to die for that cause. We see that perhaps the most fearsome warrior class ever in existence helped shape the Japanese people into what they are today by giving them the greatest gift of a sense of honor that would not allow for them to be considered or looked down upon as an inferior power. So they grew to be one of the world's biggest economical and political powers, often standing on the same stage as United States and Russia in Europe.